Hey, good morning. Today is towards the end of a long week, namely Friday, and then I will enjoy 2 days of hopefully peaceful weekend. So I just wanted to first of all say apologies for not putting out a video for a couple of days. First one was completely involuntary due to the fact that the file became corrupt on my mobile phone. And yesterday I also didn't put anything out because I never made it outside, to be honest. I woke up more or less, but couldn't bring myself together to walk outside in the morning, so no video being taken. And by the time I finished all of the things that I needed to do for my work and household things and fatherly things, then time would dwindle down to 9 p.m. and it was already dark outside. And I don't think a video shot in the dark is gonna be any good, so I decided to pull the plug on that one as well. The reason why I couldn't bring myself to go out yesterday was mostly due to my experience, you can say, on the Wednesday, because I was going to Denmark, and I had the main reason why I was going to Denmark was to go for a follow-up checkup, X-ray consultation with the doctor after the surgery I had 1 month prior for the kidney stone. That was the main purpose. The second purpose was, to get into the office for once, meet up and talk with some of my colleagues. Some of them I haven't seen at all because they're new faces to me. There's some personnel swapping, you can say. And that was the two purposes of doing that. But if you can recall them, if not, then I'm gonna show some of the videos here that I took during the trip. But it was a kind of a horrible experience to go to Denmark right now with the facial mask requirements that they have imposed on every public transportation. So it starts all the way from when you go on the ferry. So as soon as you board the ferry, you have to put on the mask. Then you board the train on the opposite side, still wearing the mask. And finally, once I got down to the main station of Copenhagen, then I needed to put the mask on a third time because I had to take the bus out to the clinic where I had the X-ray and so on. Once that was done, of course, then I took the bus back, went into the office, and just at that point I had been close to struggling to have this mask on for that duration of time. I felt nauseous. I felt like I needed some fresh air all the time, because you're always more or less circulating this hot air that you're inhaling and exhaling partially when you have the mask on. And it wasn't a very pleasant experience for sure. Kind of claustrophobic, if you ask me. So finally, when all of that was done, then like I said, came home at 7 p.m, dinner, make sure the little guy, he sleeps, finish up all the jobs that I couldn't do during the day, feeling more or less completely exhausted from that experience, and sleeping in. So the following day I was just, when the alarm went off, I was completely blank in my head. I had zero motivation to go outside at that point. So sorry for that, but I also have to balance some things in my life cautiously and take priorities when needed. And getting outside at that point was not the priority. I wanted to push first. So, sitting down a little bit, let me bring you back in time. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience of moving away from home. It can be always something interesting, right? So when I turned 19, around that region, what I wanted to do in life was pretty unclear. You could say I had some interest in where I wanted to go educationally wise, coming out of what I would essentially mean is high school in Sweden. But I wouldn't say that I was the most, I wasn't the best student in class, for sure. So my grades kind of reflected that. So despite me having some forms of ambition on what I wanted to do with my life, then actually getting those educations were not a viable route for me because of my grades. So I decided to do a Sabbath year, not a Sabbath, but an extra year in school to improve my grades. So I did that. It's kind of called folk high school or something like that, where you basically you enlist, same as anything, but you have a various degree of people there from all ages participating. So you sign up for what courses you want to do, and they are based on the courses and the same material that you had during high school, in order to improve those specific topics and grades. So I took 1 year of that. Was very okay, I would say. I managed to raise most of my grades that I wanted to get a higher. And of course the topics I managed to get higher was also the ones that would enable me to search and apply for these educations that I wanted to pursue. Of course, I'm not the only person who's pursuing that, so I ended up not being even shortlisted in many of them, despite this, that I managed to get higher grades. I did manage, however, to get into one education that is called a qualified work education, or KY. I don't know what it would translate into English, but it's basically a short-term education. This one was 2 years based, and then during the duration of your education, you find companies that are willing to take you in as an intern, basically, for that duration. So you learn the ropes a little bit about what they're doing, and they can kind of evaluate you of how you are in terms of potential to be hired. The education itself was not very good, and it was a startup education, I would say. It started the same year as all of us that started as students there. It rolled out, so many things were unfinished. The locale that we were going to was unfinished. There was still construction going on. The whole computer system, because this was IT based, there were no computer systems that were modern at the time, so we were sitting on older systems when we were doing some form of education that involved computers. During the time when we had the education, we actually well, we got some funds, and basically they told us, put together 7 or 8 workstations, specify it, and then build it. Which, okay, from an education point of view, how do you build together a computer, made sense, but you could also see through the fingers a little bit here that they just didn't want to do some additional job on putting that together. So they took on the students to kind of mix it into their education to build these things for them. And there were a lot of these things all the time that felt half-fought, half-baked, whatever you want to call it. Some teachers were not showing up sometimes because they were not only teachers for us, they were also teachers at other schools. So they basically ran out of time, or they were sick, or they were, it was not a very good education. The point I want to make is about moving away from home, at least. So that part I did when I was 20. So moved into a student apartment at 20. It was very big. It was a 4-room apartment with a fireplace and everything. Kind of crazy looking back at that, but for one person moving in there, that was not an option. So of course, during my duration, during the time when I was living there, first I had one roommate, and he sticked around for, I would say, a little bit over 1 year. And I guess he just wanted to have a different, internet or whatever. That's what he said. He wanted to have a faster internet connection. So he couldn't get that in that student apartment, so he moved to a different one. He's still a good friend of mine still today. So we've been doing a lot of stupid things during the years. Then after that, I was living the single life for a while, and a second roommate came in, and he was doing some completely other education. So the first roommate, me and him, we were enlisted to the same one, so we would we'll go back and forth to school together, and make household cooking and so on together. So that worked okay. But the second one, he had a different agenda completely. I don't even to this day know where he was a student, but the experience was completely different. So we lived totally separate lives while still living in the same apartment, which sounds very strange, but I didn't interact too much with him, just on the bare minimum. And I would say we shared the apartment for like 6 months, and then I was finished with my education and I moved out, and he stayed there for whatever education that he had at the time. Then finally, like I said, graduated out, managed to actually get a job on one of these companies that I had during my as an internship. I was one of the few people after that education I managed to get that, which I was quite happy about. The work was kind of webmaster related, you can say. I maintained a web page for the company, very small company, and just made sure it was kept running, created content for the web page, but this was back in the 2001 year, and the IT bubble came, and many IT companies, including this company, went to the grave together with that. Just never made a profit, basically, bleeding out money, and could never turn the core business into something to get money back and pay off any loans that were taken. So yeah, that was that. I may continue that story sometime, but that was kind of my experience growing up, going to school and getting an apartment for the first time. But maybe not so much in depth, so maybe I'll cover that more in depth, how the experience actually was at the next episode. We'll see what my brain comes up with. Until then, see you around the bend. Bye.